Welcome back to Hardball. And poll after poll, no matter how the question is asked, a majority of Americans clearly considers the Iraq War a mistake. In the most recent NBC Wall Street Journal poll that asked whether the Iraq War was worth it, nearly 60% say not worth it. Then there's the way CBS asked the question in a March 2013 poll. Do you think the United States did the right thing in taking military action against Iraq, or should the United States have stayed out? 54% say we should have stayed out. And in the most recent poll actually comes from Pew, USA Today, conducted in January of this year. It asks, overall, do you think the United States has mostly succeeded or failed in achieving its goals in Iraq? 52% say failed. Well, given that set of data, let's listen to Andrea Mitchell ask Senator John McCain about selling Americans now on any sort of military involvement in Iraq.
Given the state of the facts on the ground right now, how do you persuade Americans that there is any military option that they ought to embrace to try to bail Maliki out and restore a country that is coming apart at the seams?
First of all, I think you have to explain to the American people what kind of a threat that a ISIS takeover of Iraq would pose to the United States of America. Can you imagine a caliphate or a center of violent Muslim extremism dedicated to attacking the United States, the consequences of that? That has to be explained to the American people.
Joining me now is NBC News senior political reporter Perry Bacon and the Daily Beast's Kimberly Dozier, who in 2006 was seriously injured covering the Iraq War. I think we say wounded when you're hurt during a war. You never say injured. You know, John McCain, bless his heart, has a particular history. 7 years in the Hanoi Hilton, waiting for the United States to win the damn Vietnam War. So he doesn't like half-hearted war attempts. But most Americans look upon this war far differently. They look at it as a long slog of nothing. And all we do is put one side in power so they can screw the other side. And to me, the most vivid example is that horrific, ghastly hanging of Saddam Hussein. That wasn't an act of justice. It was an act of revenge by a bunch of thugs that looked like a bunch of guys just, how much fun can we have at this party? And we had to put our hand to that. Your thoughts? The American people, what can you tell from their opinion about this thing about McCain's out there talking airstrikes? Hillary Clinton says not now, a bit prudently, but not now. But still, even talking about nuclear, I mean, any weapons by the United States and killing more Arabs seems to be a turnoff to
not just in Iraq, but in Afghanistan and Libya. The polls show Americans, Republicans, and Democrats just want to stay out of wars right now. So I think the idea that Obama or John McCain can convince Americans we need to intervene is not going to happen. Obama may decide airstrikes are appropriate anyway, but it's not going to be because public opinion is demanding so. I don't think it'll ever be the case anytime soon where public opinion is demanding that.
You know what I despise? People who say all options are on the table. Because what they really mean is we're going to war. And we're going to get in there, we're going to end up shooting people. Anyway, the only people that seem to be for the war are those who have access to op-ed pages. The ones that write columns. I don't know if the service members' parents are pushing this war. Your thoughts?
Well, President Obama is specifically saying he won't be putting large numbers of troops on the ground.
Well, what about airstrikes?
Airstrikes.
He says he's reviewing all options. What is he talking about?
Airstrikes would require some more intelligence forces on the ground, both special operations, CIA, etc.
What's our moral authority to go into Iraq at this point and start killing one side of that fight?
You know,
what's our moral authority?
You know, that's one thing that they've got to figure out.
Constitutional authority?
Because the ISI, it's not specifically al-Qaeda, and at this point, the armed use of military force, that which we use to invade Iraq, it doesn't apply because, well, that which we use to invade Afghanistan, it doesn't apply because it doesn't specifically say a group that divorced itself from al-Qaeda is also a threat. So the White House might have to go back to Capitol Hill for approval.
I would think so.
Even figure out.
Is there some piece of paper somewhere, Perry, sitting on Capitol Hill somewhere in the legal counsel of the White House that says we can just bomb people if we think about it? It's one of our options.
Congress is not going to approve another war.
And the American people, I would like to know that there's some limit to power in the presidency.
We've already seen this. The president talked about having strikes in Syria, and the Congress pushed back so aggressively he immediately stopped that. There may be the legal authority. I've been told that John McCain has been saying that there is the legal authority based on we already authorized a war, and we already.
But we left.
We left.
Wait,
I agree.
Article 2 of the Constitution says that if Americans are under threat, and you do have Americans under threat, you have American diplomats.
We're in every capital in the world. We got missionaries and business people everywhere. Under that authority, we could fight anywhere we wanted to at any time.
But to play the devil's advocate here,
well, you are the devil.
You're
playing the devil. I'm sorry. You are making an argument that justifies military action any time a president wants to conduct it.
Think about what could happen with Iraq and Syria remaining permanently in the hands of an Islamic militant group, or just northern Iraq and Syria. It becomes a nexus for foreign fighters, even more than it already is. Well, we're talking about foreign fighters being drawn to Syria and possibly now to the northern part of Iraq or the Sunni-held areas to learn the kind of skills that would not only perpetuate a civil war in that area between the Sunnis and the Shiites, but also be the kind of thing that they could use in Western capitals in the United States. That's the kind of thing.
That's an argument against us, an argument for us controlling all the land mass in the Middle East, because it may be used for terrorism. Again, here's my question. Why are we on the same side as the Iran Revolutionary Guard that's now just got battalions there defending Baghdad? What has Iran got in common with us in fighting terrorism?
Well, look, there is a difference between using, as John Brennan used to say when he was counterterrorism advisor, the counterterrorism forces of the U.S. like a scalpel to try to hit certain targets, take out certain leadership, and from what I understand, that's the kind of aid being considered to give to Iraq.
But I go back to my point. I go back to my point, both of you first and Perry. We in the United States Senate, I didn't get to vote. I'm not a senator, and I certainly wouldn't have voted for this. Hillary Clinton actually voted for this one. John McCain, of course, always does, to declare the Iranian Revolutionary Guard a terrorist organization. Now there's talk by McCain of joining them on the same side, fighting the rebels over there, fighting the Sunnis, because they're in there fighting on behalf of the Maliki government now. We're talking about sending Air Force strikes in there on their behalf. If they're the terrorists, are we on their side now, or are there terrorists on both sides?
And what administration officials would say is that the Iranians are in there backing the Shiite side of the government and possibly fomenting more of this sectarian violence, making matters worse. What the U.S. would hope to do is provide the kind of aid, and as the president said today, that they have to clean up their political act and represent all sides of the country, or they're not going to get U.S. help. So the U.S. is trying to say, we'll give you even more help than the Iranians, but you've got to start playing fair with all sides of your ethnic divide.
Okay, just to play politics here a little bit. Back when we were de-Baathicizing that government, back after 2003 when we went in there, and this guy with the nice-looking suit, Bremer, with the suit and the big brown shoes he wore all the time, walking around in work shoes, they went in there and basically did something that had nothing to do with us. They got rid of the Iraqi army, they got rid of the Iraqi government, they de-Baathicized and destroyed the entire political establishment of that country, which was Sunni. They sent the word to the Sunnis, we're not on your side. Now the Sunnis are coming back to fight the power that we put into power. How can we claim we're not part of a civil war when we basically waged war against the Sunnis?
Well, Chris, those are the right two words. Is it a civil war, which is what you're saying, or is it an elected government that we're trying to defend, which is a John McCain's question? I think that's the framing of this issue. The way to think about it is, if it's a civil war, it's like Syria. We're definitely not going to go in. If the president determines this is
different, what was de-Baathification about? What was that
about? Historical point here. Yes, de-Baathification went on under Bremer, but later on, the U.S. military reached out to the Sunnis, and there was the whole Anbar awakening, and we became their greatest ally.
And then what happened?
And then in 2011, we handed over to the Maliki government, and we withdrew forces.
And he got rid of all the Sunnis in his government.
And then he started working against the Sunni leadership, and Death Squad started going after settling old scores again, just like they did in the bad old days.
It's my case. Thank you, Perry. Thank you for making my case. It was a little fight there, but it always should be a fight here. It's called hardball. Actually, Kim does. Have a nice weekend. You too. I'm not sure they're having a nice weekend over there. Coming up, Jon Stewart's theory on why those Sunni insurgents are moving so fast toward Baghdad. That's coming next in the Sideshow, and this is Hardball, the place for politics.